morning. Welcome to the National Quality Milk Virtual Farm Event. I'm George Ramsbottom, and on behalf of Teagasc and our event partners, the National Dairy Council, Ornua and Aurivo, we're delighted to welcome you here today. The 2020 National Quality Milk Award winners in the NDC and Kerrygold competition were Richard and Wendy Starrett. The Starrett's farm here at Killandara, Lifford in County Donegal. We have a packed agenda for you here today, which will focus on topics including quality milk and cow breeding, animal health and welfare, biodiversity and the environment. Now I'll hand you over to the studio where our host Jack Kennedy from the Irish Farmers Journal will introduce you to our panel.
Hi folks, I'm Jack Kennedy and welcome to the calf shed, the studio on the Starrett family farm in Lifford, County Donegal. We're delighted to be here today. We'd love if you were with us, but hopefully you'll get a taste of what this farm is really like from the virtual show that we have to put on here today. First job, I want to introduce my panel. George Ramsbottom is here from Teagasc. George, good to have you on the show. You're here representing Teagasc. Tommy Doherty would love to be here. Seamus Cullan from Limerick would love to be here. You're here holding the mantle for Teagasc. The Starrett family farm and Teagasc have always had a good relationship.
Great relationship going back for many decades at this stage. Seamus would have worked with Richard back in the early and mid 90s, and Tommy took up the mantle there a couple of years ago when Seamus retired.
Yeah. Excellent. We'll come into that a little bit more. Majella McCafferty is with us from Aurivo. Majella, again, like Aurivo, it's good for Aurivo to get a winner. It's good for the co-op. It's good for the other suppliers.
Absolutely fantastic, Jack, for Donegal and for Aurivo all over to have such an excellent ambassador and to have the overall milk quality winner, I suppose. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Excellent. I'm getting excited already to get to know and get a feel for Richard and what's happening on the farm. Like, folks, I think before we come to Richard live here in the calf shed, I want to play a small little promo video for Richard as he introduces us and welcomes us to his farm.
I'm Richard Starrett, the 2020 National Dairy Council and Kerrygold Quality Milk Award winner. Here in the farm, my mother and father, myself and Wendy, and the three children, David, aged 10, Holly, aged 8, and John, almost 4. I took over the farm here from my father in 1994 when he took the early retirement scheme. At that stage we were milking 70 cows and a small bit of tillage. Now we're milking 160 high EBA black and white cows on a grass-based system.
Richard, thanks for that short introduction, that promo video. We have you here live in the calf shed to grill you in terms of some of the questions, in terms of some of the issues that happen on this farm. I suppose before we kind of get into the nitty gritty of it, Richard, in terms of farm, where it is here in Lifford, overlooking Strabane, overlooking the Finn Valley, it's a productive part of Donegal. Like, I mean, it's a real agriculturalist strong.
Yeah, Jack, there would be a lot of dairy farmers in this area and a lot of milk produced. Like, we can grow a lot of grass here. Like, so I'd be growing 14 tons like each year. Like, and it's good part. Yeah,
it's a good part, and it's a good part for Aurivo in terms of the collection piece. In terms of, I suppose, the farm and how it has grown, Richard. Again, before we get into kind of bringing it up to speed, just give us a feel for when you took over the farm. Your father John was here before you. You took over the farm in '94, as you said. Talk to me a little bit about kind of how you grew the farm from the 60 or 70 cows that you had then up to the kind of 160 cows that you have here today.
Whenever I took over the farm in 1994, my father took the early retirement scheme. We were milking about 70 cows, and just through the years we were able to build it on that. We became dual quota holders through Kerrygold around about 2007, 2008, and we're just able to gradually build numbers by leasing quota and getting extra land beside us and stuff over the years. And like whenever the milk quotas disappeared, like we were up there at our numbers anyway, like.
Yeah, I mean, there was a stage, and I know you from down through the years, and myself and George were up here on this farm. George, it might be 15 or 20 years ago at this stage.
We reckon it's 15 years ago that we were first up here on this farm looking at the quality farming that was going in this region. Yeah,
yeah, and that was involved in that time was a breeding competition. That was the EBI competition, the individual breeding competition. Richard, I mean, in terms of the cows, I mean, numbers have grown significantly. They've grown from the kind of 50 or 60 that you had back then, we'll say, to the 160 now. Like, I mean, is that maybe where it's going to stay at the moment?
Yeah, that's where we hope to stay at the moment. Like, we're back in 2017, we had 177 cows, and we pulled the numbers back to around 160 and still put out the same amount of milk. Focus on the smaller amount of cows and being efficient with them.
Okay, and looking after them that little bit better. We might come back to that now later on in the show as we develop into the story. We're here, I suppose, to celebrate the fact that the Starrett family farm won the 2020 National Quality Milk Award, the Ornua Kerrygold National Dairy Council Quality Milk Award. But it's much more than milk quality. And I think now is an opportune time to play a short little video from the judges that judged on the competition and their thoughts on why Richard and the Starrett family farm were winners.
Firstly, I'd like to congratulate Richard and Wendy and their family for the phenomenal victory in the 2020 Kerrygold NDC Milk Quality Award.
2020 was a challenge, I suppose, from the COVID point of view, getting out to some great farms from West Cork to Donegal.
Hard to believe this competition is moving into its 12th year. Really, the competition has gone from strength to strength every year. I mean, it has evolved, I suppose, as the dairy industry has evolved over the last number of years. So I suppose broaden out away from just milk quality.
I find as a judge, it's a very humbling experience doing the judging every year to see the commitment and the passion and the competency of the finalists. And Richard, his farm is in Donegal, which is actually a challenging place to farm, and he has a longer winter and tougher terrain than some of the farmers in the south, and so that makes his victory even greater.
Starrett family were exceptional last year from every aspect, you know, whether it was the technical aspect of it and the quality of milk on the farm or the breeding.
So Richard ticks all the boxes here. He was really exceptional as regards the use of teat sealing, the use of chlorine-free for washing milk and equipment, his use of energy and water conservation, and the environment. So he really was the standout winner from the competition from that point of view. Overall, I suppose we would like to congratulate Richard and his family and Aurivo certainly for this great success. I think Richard will make a great ambassador to promote everything that's good about milk quality in Ireland.
Richard is a complete package, and so it's a great result.
No doubt about it, the Starrett family were exceptional, and Richard and Wendy and the family can be very proud of their achievements in 2020, and we look forward, I suppose, in 2021 to trying to match the excellence that we saw in 2020. Thanks to Paddy and to David Leeson for their comments in terms of the judges and what they taught last year. So obviously there's something good going on here. We want to try now and get a feel over the next give or take an hour. We want to get a feel for some of the key things that make this farm tick. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 pillars of questions, or four time slots in terms of we want to look at the environment and sustainability. We want to look at breeding and genetics. We want to look at the whole area around calves. And we want to look at milk quality, because that's crucial to the success of this farm. You can interact with us here today. We're live from the farm, but you can interact with your Q&A function on the webinar. So please get your questions in, get your comments in. Regional Area Manager for Teagasc, James Keane, is with us here in the studio, so we can take your comments and we'll put them to our guests as the day goes along. So the first slot that we want to look at is that whole area around environment and sustainability. It's huge. We're hearing about it every day, from dairy farming, from livestock farming. Now let's get a feel for what happens on this farm. We have a short promo video. Let's play it and we'll come back for the questions.
We used to try to get out to grass from 15th or 20th of February for a few hours anyway, and maybe possibly might get out full time on by day in March. On the farm here we measure grass. 1 walk in February, 2 walks in March, and weekly from the beginning of April. All this information is entered into pasture base, which is very useful. You know then where you have a surplus or deficit of grass on the farm. And there's an app on my phone too, which anything you're going to do, should it be enter a field grazed, or if you spread fertiliser or slurry in a field, it all goes into the main programme. Rainfall we get here in Donegal would be fairly high. So if we're going out to spread fertiliser or slurry, the weather has to be right. Also the ground conditions have to be right, and our buffer zones have to be watched, especially on the fields with a slope on them. We do a nutrient management plan here in the farm every year, and based on that we spread the slurry or P&K fertiliser where it's needed, and all the slurry is spread by low emission slurry spreading the past 5 years, and this is our 3rd year now to use protected urea. And also another thing we do is the water that goes through the plate cooler to cool the milk. It goes into a storage tank, and this water then is used for the cows to drink it. We have 2.5 acres of wooded area here on the farm, and it's very good as a wildlife habitat. And going forward now, we're going to put all the hedges into an A shape and leave plenty of whitethorn or blackthorn every 300 or 400 metres to develop into mature trees.
Richard, that nice little snapshot finished up with a shot of solar panels on the cubicle shed. If there was farmers streaming in the gate here today, they wouldn't see them. Those panels are up on top of the cubicle shed. Talk to me about why you invested in solar panels.
Jack, those solar panels are installed now, with 3 years now in October coming, and I just thought for a small amount of money you'd be spending, and they're guaranteed for 25 years, and we're saving approximately €900 a year on electric by using them.
So you're using what they're producing, what energy they're capturing, you're using it here on the farm and in the house?
Yeah, whatever's going at the time, should it be heating water, pumping water, the kettle boiling in the house, somebody putting the washing machine on, we're able to use all the electric, because if we don't use it all, it'll go back to the grid for nothing.
Okay.
So like, main thing, like if the water heater, there's a control panel in there, and if it sees the electric starts to go back to the grid, that brings on the water heater.
Yeah.
Like it's a nice size of a amount of solar panels there, 24, that we're able to use it all. If it was twice the size, we couldn't.
Wouldn't use it. Okay, nice little piece. I mean, but having said that, that snapshot, that short video, it showed a lot from the air. It's a nature-rich area, I'll say here. There's mature trees, there's hedgerows, even though we're on the side of a hill, I'll call it, overlooking Strabane and overlooking Lifford. It is a nature-rich area. There's lots of hedgerows. Talk to me about how you protect that, or how you kind of develop it.
Well, we just watch the hedgerows, and we didn't take any out. Like we have fields here in acre terms, from 1 acre to 10 acres, and we didn't pull out hedges over the years and make bigger fields, and we always left bits, whitethorn or blackthorn, over the years to grow onto mature trees for the environment.
I mean, George, it fits in very well, that whole piece around the hedgerows and trees. The grass-based system that Richard is running here, and whether we like it or not, it's a grass-based system he's running here. Absolutely. He's doing it very successfully. He's taken it to a high level in terms of grassland management.
When we look at some of the data from the farm here, the key stat is, in terms of grass grown on the farm, in 14 tonne in a nature-rich area, it's really top performance, really good.
I mean, Majella, in terms of your clients, in terms of the Aurivo catchment area up here in Donegal, we'll say, I mean, the majority of them are grass-based?
Yeah, grass-based systems, and I suppose they're trying always to be making the most efficient use of their grass, so depending on whether the slopes or not, still grass can be utilised, and I suppose Richard is the ambassador for that you can grow it and utilise it at that.
Richard, you're a long time at the grassland management. I'll say at this stage you're over 20 years in terms of trying to perfect it, and it takes a couple of years to get into it. Where do you see it going, I suppose, now, in terms of managing it, or trying to grow more or less grass, or how does it fit in with your system now?
Well, I would say and around the 14 tonnes, I would be happy with that. I'm not trying to push it anymore because I'm probably trying to reduce the amount of chemical nitrogen going out and maybe incorporate more clover onto the swards.
And that's where I'm kind of getting at. Like, I mean, we're looking down the line and we're seeing that maybe bag nitrogen is going to come under pressure to reduce it a bit. If the department said 10% less bag nitrogen for this farm, will it change the system?
No, it shouldn't, because we're using less low emission slurry spread in this last 5 years, and we're getting great benefit out of it. We're being able to get more use out of the nitrogen on the slurry.
When you're getting out with slurry, when you're getting out with the trail and shoe, we'll say up around this part of the world.
Well, we'll get the contractor spreads with the umbilical system with the triple bar in the springtime. Right. After the cows will usually graze the fields first. Yeah. And then we'll use the tanker then with the double bar on. Yeah. After that, if the fields are fairly clean, we'll go out at any time with spread.
And that's important, we'll say, for the system. I was joking you earlier that, listen, are you too early calving here for a kind of a grass? We're in Lifford in County Donegal. Your calving date starts 1st of February and you're compact calving. So you've a high demand hitting this farm fairly quick.
Yeah, but we might as well be calving beginning of February. I just have to feed them on side at the back end of the year.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. You're trying to get your days in milk. If you have them calved for the 1st of February, they're moving from there. And if you've compact calving, you have a lot of your cows calved early and moving from there.
That's right.
Clover, Richard, talk to me about clover and maybe how have you kicked off much with it yet?
Yeah, well, I'm involved now on the signpost programme, and so far we have 16 acres oversown this year, and so far it seems to be coming on nicely now.
You're slow to the clover train.
Yes. That's a thing that we never really thought about over the years much.
Yeah, why was that? Was it because of the kind of the aspect of the farm and that it's very slopey and you felt you kind of maybe leave the sward open, or what was the thinking?
I suppose any clover that would have been sown over the years would just be whatever came in the mixes. But, the last bit of reseeding I would have done would have been just one variety of monoculture. Yeah. And there would be no clover on that. Yeah,
okay. George, in terms of, I suppose, clover and its applicability for this system and the reduced bag nitrogen that we're talking about, will it change the game on this farm, do you think, or what can you see happening?
Yeah, so it's one of the key game changers from an environmental perspective of this farm. One of them is clover incorporation. So when we look at the data from the likes of Moore Park or from Tunnakilty, basically when you have a clover-rich sward, production per cow is as good, if not better. It's generally better per cow. But on top of that, it'll save or grow the equivalent amount of grass for about 100 kilos less fertiliser nitrogen per hectare. That's a big lot of nitrogen you can save. But the trick here is to incorporate the clover, get it growing in the sward, get it established so that it can contribute to it. And that's the challenge that Richard is working on at the moment.
And oversowing clover can be a challenge. You're going to have the grassland management is key afterwards.
You have a couple of things. You have to oversow it, you have to get it to establish, and then you've hopefully got to work with it to try and maintain it in the sward. So you have a couple of challenges there. And I think Richard's one of those farmers that's trying to establish that and get going at it and see how it works.
Majella, looking to you in terms of your Aurivo clients again, is there many of them getting on the clover train now and I suppose thinking of reducing bag nitrogen?
Yeah, there are, and I suppose as well as using protected urea, it's definitely on the train, and we're obviously advising everybody to start using the protected urea, use less nitrogen, looking at low emission slurry spread and making the most out of what you have out of your slurry.
Okay, with questions flowing in, I'll come to James in two seconds. Richard, in terms of the hedges and the wooded area, have you changed any management, we'll say, over the last year or two in terms of how you manage the hedges, etc.?
I will say just going forward now, we'll be trying to get our hedges into more an A-shaped hedge and good height off the ground, for birds to be able to nest in the hedges better and stuff like that. And we don't cut down any trees here. We just, if there's any stuff for the fire or anything, we get it off the
whatever falls and whatever comes. James, we go to you for a question.
Okay, Jack. Two quick questions, Jack. First of all, how did you build up soil fertility on the farm, Richard, and do you soil sample often on the farm?
Nice one. Two great questions, and it's getting back to this whole area of environmental and sustainability. So soil, talk to me about soil testing, talk about building up the P&K.
Soil testing, a third of the farms tested here every year. Should it be a field be an acre in size or be 10 acres in size? We have a soil sample for every field, and working off that then with minute management plan, and
Yeah. So that's how you're doing a third every year. Like, so you're getting around the farm in 3 years.
Yeah.
You've new soil testing.
Very important. Like that's 5-year thing. That's no good. Like that's
too long. Talk to me about P&K levels in terms of where they were, and in terms of, I suppose, how you kind of built them up. Were they low? We'll say, and talk to me about kind of what you used.
They were low. Like we were involved on the P build up there on the nutrient management plan, and like we were able to get paddocks all up. We're using 18-6-12 or something like that, or over the years. Like
spreading it when? What time of the year were you spreading it, Richard? Or what?
Probably in the earlier part of the year.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Keeping the P's and K's in early, and keeping that grass moving. Like, George, the package fits well. The environmental, the sustainability, the grass-based piece. It's a nice package here, but there's nothing special. I'll say there's nothing like bar top class management, and we tend to gloss over it, but there's nothing real special here.
No, but I suppose it's taking all of the lessons and advisory messages that are there and putting them into practice. What Richard is doing, that's where he's winning. So for example, when we talk about clover incorporation, he has the index right for P&K, he has the pH right in the farm, he's monitoring what's going on. And with kind of relatively intensive farms like Richard, things can change quickly. So he needs to keep on top of it, which is what he's doing, and applying the science.
Brilliant. We're going to come back to it, folks. We're on to the next slot. I suppose the next area that we want to have a look at, it's breeding and genetics. We have a short little promo video again, just to give you a feel for the cows and a feel for where things are. Let's watch that, and we'll come back for the questions.
Currently the herd EBA is 200.
Sub-indexes of that would be 84 for fertility, 64 for milk, 15 for maintenance, and 4 for health. The top 1% in the country's average EBA at the minute would be 178. So it's nice just being that wee bit ahead.
Stock bull on the farm here, so we weigh for 12 weeks. We have new monitors fitted to all the cows the past 4 years, and it's an excellent tool for heat detection and rumination. Each year we use genomically selected bulls. We use a good team of bulls, maybe 11 or 12 bulls. The reason why we use a good team of bulls is to spread the risk if some of the bulls would happen to go down, but some of the bulls might go down, but other ones will go up on EBA. We use some beef EA from the very beginning on poorer cows. We don't want any freezing heifer calves or bulls born after the middle of March.
George, looking to you first on this breeding one. We got a nice little feel for the herd. It's a black and white herd. It's a Holstein Friesian herd. It's 200 EBI. It's probably one of the top herds in the country.
One of the top herds in the country, Jack. When we started the competition, myself and yourself, back in 2005, the EBI competition years ago, this would have been a high-performing herd at that stage. But he's kept up with the pace. He's adopted all the technology. He's breeding for high genetic merit animals, and the herd is delivering on the ground. It's delivering in spades.
Richard, like, I mean, you talked before about your father, and he followed RBI, and I'll say the RBI was pushing guys down too milky a cow. It was focused on milk only. The EBI, you followed it from the start, and it's delivering for us. Talk to us about kind of give us some stats in terms of your annual performance, like we'll say just for the year gone by in terms of milk solids volume, and we'll wrap that into the fertility piece then as well.
Yeah, like the time the EBA started now, I was very happy that something came along, because we were kind of going nowhere with the high volumes that we were getting out of the RBAs, and like going past last year, like milk solids we sold was 594, 3.92 protein and 4.52 fat.
Yeah, super solids. It's super performance. Almost 7,000 litres, almost 600 kilos of milk solids, and that's coming from a grass-based with on top of you have about 1.2 tons of feed per cow, like, which is a nice bit of concentrate, like, but you're relatively well stocked.
Yeah, and like that extra meal would come from whenever we start to go out to grass, like the 15th to 20th of February. A lot of that's 2 or 3 hour grazings, like. Okay. Like, so the cows actually get their allocation of grass, but they're still back in there and getting silage and stuff. And,
okay.
Maybe if we were out full time, we wouldn't be feeding as much milk, like. Okay. Or meal, sorry.
Yeah, no. So we'll stay with the breeding side of things first, and we might come back to the performance again. But in terms of breeding, like, I mean, are you selecting on EBI, and how do you do it? And talk to us about kind of the sires you use, etc., and that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're selecting on EBA. We use about 11 or 12 genomic bulls. we have a good team of bulls there to spread our risk. Some of the bulls will go down an EBA and some will go up, so in the lower averages, like, we're still in the middle there.
And Richard, when does the stock bull kick in?
We don't have a stock bull.
Never had. Or when did he go? When did the stock bull leave the farm?
We've had a new monitor to the cows back about 4 years ago, and I would say before that, like, there were stock bulls there.
Right.
We just breed the whole way through now with the children being about. I don't want any bulls about the farm.
Yeah. In the short video, Richard, we saw some beef calves. Like, you know, I mean, I'll say, and myself and George here are saying that, listen, hey, you've a top herd. You've one of the top EBI herds. Like, should you not be trying to breed more replacements? And if you don't want them yourself, you're moving them off either as calves or as in calf heifers. What's your thinking on that side of things?
It would be a thing I could do okay, but like over the years, I have built up a good relationship with farmers here locally to take my beef calves, and they're very happy with the calves they get, and I don't want to annoy them.
I know, yeah, I hear you. Like, yeah, and look at it, and maybe you're dead right. Talk to me in terms of the numbers of kind of replacement heifer calves that you that are born and that you keep.
This year there were 58 Friesian heifer calves born on the farm. We sold 28 of them. All the Friesian heifers were genomically tested, so we were able to pick which ones we wanted to keep and which ones we were selling. But like, all the calves were very, very good on EBAs.
Yeah, well, I'd say they were. I'd say your worst calves are probably better than the national average. Majella, just to bring you in on the whole, like, you're working with a lot of clients in the farm profitability program with Aurivo that are using technology. I mean, Richard mentioned, you know, the moo monitors and how it has helped the piece, and say in terms of that information, and it's removed the stock bulls. Like, do you see many of your other clients going that road?
Yeah, there's a lot of labour saving efficiency. So like the backlatch, or you know, the different backing gates, different things, drafting gates, you know, new entrants as well want to make it as labour efficient as possible.
I mean that whole technology piece is important. Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, George, I put it to Richard, maybe, is he calving too early? We're up here in Donegal. Should he be maybe starting the middle of February and then moving from there with his compact calving? His fertility is very good.
Yeah, we thought about that. We talked about that, myself and Richard earlier on about it, and we reflected on it. In reality, he needs the days in milk. He can either take them at the start of the lactation indoors or at the end of the lactation indoors. And with the liver the solids he's doing with the most grass going in, calving around early February is the way to go.
Right, yeah. So you're comfortable where he is at 100%. Kind of at starting the 1st of February.
And the key to it is compact calving, high fertility.
That's it. And that's what's driving, and that's what we're seeing here. Like, I mean, we have a very high 6 week in calf rate. What do we have? 85%, have we?
83, yeah.
83, give or take. Like, you know. Look at the other piece that's delivering this performance, I'll say, looking in from the outside, is this whole piece around selective culling, like being able to kind of cull out the cows that maybe are not performing to the standard that you want here on this farm. Like, I mean, if I look back 5-6 years ago, you were producing 450 kilos of milk solids per cow, give or take. Like, you're up at close to 600 now. Like, I mean, there's been a significant shift, like, in that. Like, talk to me about the herd and how the performance has moved there in that piece.
Yeah, we'd really focus on, we'd take out cows that aren't performing, like. And
what's not performing, Richard? Though, just you know, what you know, when you say it's not performing, like, what they're probably still delivering 450, 500 kilos. What?
Some of the solids wouldn't be good. Like, if you go into the cow's own worth there on ICBF website, like, it tells you a lot of information about cows there, and there's a few cows even I have there at the minute, they're on a minus, like, they're actually losing you money. Each year.
Yeah. So you're taking them out. So and tell me about the culling policy. How many is going? Are we removing 20-25% of the herd each year, or what's happening?
It wouldn't be just as many as that now. Yeah. Maybe around the 15% or something.
15%.
But like,
it's very modest, Jack.
That's not the
high, average lactation number of the herd is 5.6. So it's a mature herd. Right. And that's part of the reason why the milk yield has gone up so much and is so good for the cows that he has. Yeah. Because he's a mature herd. Fertility is good. They're not being culled because they have to be culled because they're empty. They're being culled because he wants to cull them. He's in control of what's going out of the herd.
And the pipeline coming in, the heifers are good, they're high EBI, they're good milk solids. Majella, that's what you were looking for in Aurivo, high milk solids, like.
We are, yeah. So we're obviously, it's more efficient for and more profitable for the farmer to have higher solids, and it's more profitable for the co-op to have more solids. We're on an A plus B minus C payment system, so it's much better to have higher solids than to getting
discount for value for fat and protein. James, we have a question.
Yeah, a quick question in here, just with Kevin as a new entrant. Maybe just a bit of advice and guidance on how would we target and get to for Kevin to get to those high EBI figures, Jack?
Nice one. Yeah, it's a good question. Like, we have had over 1,100 new entrants into the industry over the last 5 years, Richard. Like, in terms of them starting off, the cows are key, getting the herd right. Like, I mean, what would you advise in terms of, you know, selecting a new entrant, Kevin, looking to select cows to get into the dairy industry?
I think the main thing he needs to have a good talk with a dairy advisor, and he would advise him on the right sort of stock to buy. The worst thing you could do, I would say, is go out and buy too many heifers or calves the first year or so, and some of them the wrong type.
Yeah.
Maybe start a wee bit smaller and build yourself up gradually to an excellent herd, because there's some new entrants out there here, especially in Donegal, and they've started with a very, very good cow, and they're putting out a serious amount of milk solids.
They've jumped the 20 years that it took you to get to where you are
right.
today by buying the right stock. Like.
Jack, there's massive opportunities there.
Isn't that such a message, guys? If we did nothing else today but talk about those new entrants buying the right stock starting off. Richard, if they were to come to this farm, just to give guys an idea in terms of the numbers, in terms of EBI, if that's their measure, if they were to come to this farm, what would the EBI of the heifer calves, or George or Majella might know, the EBI of the heifer calves or the EBI of the in-calf heifers, if they came to this farm, what would they be buying?
The EBI of the heifer calves this year is 267.
Of the heifer calves?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you sell some heifer calves this year? You did?
Yeah, we sold 28, yeah.
Okay.
Three different farmers.
So that's top of the range, top of the pops in terms of heifer calves, 250 plus, you're in the game and you're developing a cow, then you match that with the performance and you can get the performance that we're talking about.
I would say, Jack, for new entrants, so the stock and the cow is the middle. So you have to have that right as well, you know, and data-driven buying stock, not just going out looking at stock and having a look to see. It needs to be data-driven, so you know what kind of stock you have.
Okay.
One thing I think that some people get carried away with too when they're selecting even bulls or buying dairy heifers, what's the milk kilos? You don't want much more than 100, because if you start to go up to those 200 or 300 or 400, you're diluting down your solids.
Right. So you're talking about when a farmer's making a breeding decision, he's looking at the numbers. Stay 100 or thereabouts. Don't go into the high volume bulls. That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
If you have a high volume bull, it has to go in a minus cow.
Yeah.
Modest milk, but high milk sub-index.
Yeah.
So Richard here is around the 50 mark for kilos of milk, but he's 70 for milk sub-index. So to get a milk sub-index of around 70 with modest milk yield, the composition and kilos have to be really good.
Yeah.
And he's around 100 fertility.
Brilliant. Okay. So look, we've had a good rattle off that, and look, we could spend the whole show on breeding, and look, maybe we'll come back to it in the question and answer sessions at the very end. But in terms of management, breeding management, I just want to touch off it before we go. We're coming to the end of this session on breeding. Breeding management, you touched off the moo monitors and how you work that. You're also tail painting. Like, I mean, it's important. The genetics you can have, but you still need to pick the cows up in terms of submitting them for breeding and getting a good conception rate. Like, how important has it been? Has it been a game changer?
Oh, yeah, moo monitors on now for 4 years, like, and we still tail paint along with it.
You don't believe the moo monitors, though, is it?
No, that's just an extra bit of backup, like, because we don't have any bulls, and the reason why I put the moo monitors on is because whenever I was tail painting on its own, it tied me to the milking parlour for all the time we were in to watch, see the paint rubbed off and all the rest. But whenever you see it on your phone now, cows in heat or cows sick or whatever, like, it's
you're comfortable. Very
like,
comfortable, yeah. And I mean, we saw from the video, short little clip on the video, like, you have drafting in place, like, so you're using the tools, we'll say, to allow you manage your 150, 160 odd cows.
Yeah, like, cows are automatically drafted out. I don't have to
input anything.
Like.
Yeah, brilliant. Like, I know, so look, and that's, George, that's how it's evolving in terms of managing the extra numbers. We're still here, give or take. We'll come to the labour on this farm in a minute, but we're talking about a labour unit per 100 cows, give or take. But you need the technology to help that.
What you're seeing here is you're seeing technology being adopted that is not essential, but is labour saving. And we'll see it a couple of times over the course of the day. This is what's happening in this farm.
Okay, brilliant. We've had a good chat, folks. We'll be back to it again, I'm sure, in the question and answer session. I want to move on to kind of the next session, and we've talked about genetics, selecting the right sire, selecting the right calves. The next section is a short little video on calf rearing and what happens on calves on their Starrett farm. Let's have a watch and we'll come back for the questions.
Calving here in the herd usually starts around the beginning of February. The 6 week on calf rate is 83% to try and get as many cows to grass for as long a period as possible. All calves will get colostrum within 2 hours of being born. They will go into an automatic feeder after 3 or 4 days old, and when the weather is right, usually towards middle to end of March, they get out to have access to grass by day for a few hours, or depending on the weather. Now, usually the beef calves are probably nearly half weaned before they're sold off the farm. They go to local farmers. All Friesian heifers that are being kept on the farm are contract reared after weaning. For the first winter, I get half of them back again to graze ground on the home farm here that the cows can't graze. And the second half of the heifers are kept on the contract rear until the second winter. I get them back then.
Brilliant, Richard. Again, that nice little snapshot in terms of what happens in terms of the calf shed where we're sitting here today. It's very different. It's very different when there's a lot of cows here bawling for milk. But you've gone to the feeders, I see, and talk to us about kind of that transition into the kind of automatic calf feeders as opposed to the buckets. I'm sure when your father John was here, he hadn't calf feeders.
No such thing as calf feeders then. These automatic calf feeders was installed 3 years ago, and it's just actually taking a labour unit out of the calf shed. The way the calves can go on and suck themselves and all that.
Yeah, you're making a big statement there now, Richard, in terms of like taking a labour unit, because it's a busy time. It's a lot of labour when you don't have it, when it's at a busy time when you're calving, right, etc. and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh no, it's a great but you just have to stay on top of it. It's all powder. We feed an automatic calf feeder.
Okay.
We don't feed any milk at all.
Okay. Majella, I'm sure again some of your clients are using the powder, some of them are using the whole milk in terms of the calf feeders. I've talked to guys that are not happy with the calf feeders, they're gone back to the buckets for the control, etc. and that kind of thing. Talk to me about what you've seen.
Well, I suppose it depends, I think, on the system and what the farmer is happy with. Richard is using it here for labour efficiency, and it's working perfectly for him. Some people don't want to use it, they want to use the full powder. Some people want just the consistent milk powder and that's it. So depends on the system, the farmer, and is it making your life better or is it more labour efficient?
Yeah. George, before I come to you on the labour efficiency, Richard, tell us who's kind of working on the farm here in terms of the labour, in terms of yourself and the family, and just who else is involved?
There's myself full time, and our labour unit, then full time labour unit, David Blackburn. He came here as a student in 2010, he's still here. And then there's 2 relief milkers then, one Patrick McColgan and some different farm relief uses. They work alternative weekends, and if we need them during the week as well, we'll get them.
Okay. So, I mean, again, George, in terms of, I suppose, a typical dairy farmer, 150, 160 cows, I'll say he's well resourced in terms of labour. Like Richard is sitting with his legs up most of the time.
As I would always say, you have to ask the spouse of the farmer, do they believe that their spouse is sitting around with the legs up? And I would greatly doubt that's the case.
No, I think, and we all know that Richard works hard. But it's that attention to detail that drives a lot of that, and sometimes I wonder, is that last 5% worth it, George?
I wonder that sometimes myself, but in this case here, the nature of Richard is to excel in what he does, do it properly, use the data and get the most from it, and that's what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's definitely something there. The other big piece that jumped out from that little short promo video for me, Richard, was the whole area around contract rearing. So the heifer calves are they're here for a couple of weeks and then they're leaving the farm. Just talk to me about when you started that, and will you stay with it?
We're at that maybe 10 plus years now. The contract rearing, the calves all leave here when they're weaned and go to the contract rearer. At the first winter we get half of the heifers back. We have accommodation here for them because we need half of them to graze land on the home farm here. The cows can't graze, there's 3 hectares. Okay. And the rest of them stay with the contract rearer then to the winter before the calf, the start of the winter.
Okay.
I get them back then.
And in terms of the performance, again, we're here I'm looking at a guy that wants top performance. Your contract rearer must be kind of shaping up, he must be delivering the goods.
Yeah, calves will be weighed when they leave here, they're all weaned automatically after the automatic feeders there, around 95 kilos. And they're weighed throughout the year to see if there's any ones that need to be pulled out for feeding separate or whatever.
And Richard, in terms of what other targets are there in terms of that contract rearing? Have you any other? Do you get a monthly weight invoice from him in terms of what's happening, or do you just go and see them?
We would be fairly close, and do a lot of the stuff ourselves, even the weighing, we might actually weigh in them ourselves and stuff too. Like, because contract rearer is actually my brother George. So
Okay, well, family, keep them close, like keep them close. So they haven't gone too far outside the business. Like Richard, I mean, the other piece, I suppose, is the compact calving, and I suppose getting your heifer calves early. Sex semen is more on the agenda. Would it float your boat? Would you think of using sex semen?
I did use sex semen last year. Bought 12 straws, got 6 heifer calves out of it. This year there was nothing really there that suited what I was looking to pick on.
In terms of sire selection, the sex sire wasn't there that you wanted, like, okay, yeah.
No, what I didn't mention either, like we use sire advice, like for matching my 12 bulls that I selected with the cows.
Okay, yeah, and the fact that you have good fertility, George, I mean, in terms of sex semen, like there's a bit of an uptake in it, and probably down the line you're going to see more of it. Like, I mean, would it add much, do you reckon, to Richard's? He's good fertility, he's getting enough of heifer calves, he's even using some beef calves. Like, I mean, do you reckon that sex semen would add much to this party?
Not a huge amount. To me, there is potential on this farm. We're beating this drum a little bit, Jack, here today, but there is potential for this farm to be a kind of an elite heifer breeder for other farms. But whether Richard has a good relationship with other people, whether he wants to do that or not, is his own business. So on this farm, not particularly, but on other farms, yes, there are opportunities for the sex semen route.
Brilliant. The questions are rolling in, James. We'll go to you for one.
Okay, Jack. Tim is just wondering, what sort of a herd health plan or calf vaccination policy do you do with your calves?
Good job, real good question, because it's important. We need to get them. We need to keep them alive. Talk to me about the vaccination plan for the herd and then for the calves.
The vaccination for the herd, we vaccinate for leptospirosis and BVD. That's usually done in the springtime. IBR twice a year, beginning of December and beginning of June.
Okay, big tree, that's done, yeah.
The calves there vaccinated for IBR at 3 months of age.
Okay, so you're getting in early, preventative job, and using less antibiotics in the calves. That's the plan.
We don't vaccinate for scour running. We don't have much bother with pneumonia or scour on the calves yet here.
Okay. George, very straightforward plan. No big issues there.
No big issues. High health status in the herd, so the need for any treatments and interventions is minimal.
Yeah. Majella, from your business, you'll be looking for herds and farmers using less antibiotics. We'll touch off it in the milk quality in a minute, but antibiotics in calves, etc., is very small, or in milking cows here.
Definitely, Richard. His work is so attention to detail, his record keeping, his practices throughout the calf management, I'd say, is definitely where he wins overall, and he's definitely got less antibiotics due to his work and attention to detail,
We'll finish on this one, Richard, in this section on I suppose calf rearing. We're sitting here in a new shed. Like, I mean, facilities are important. There's a lot of farms, we say, that are maybe stretched a little bit in terms of facilities. Has the calf shed been a game changer? We saw the calves sneaking out the back of the shed, we'll say, there in the video.
That's the reason why we picked the location we have here for the calf shed. Like, at the beginning I thought the shed even was too big for us, but there's no such thing as too big. We have 2 doors, access doors out the back there, where the calves can get out to grass from mid to end of March, for a couple of hours even, by the day. They just love being out there.
George touched off it there in terms of the beef, why you're using beef. And you touched off it as well, and you want to keep your neighbours happy. But I mean, if there was an opportunity there, and if the value of your stock was you were getting a lot more for it, would it be something you'd look at to use all dairy AI and less beef, or what happens the dairy bull calves, we'll say?
Because it has local farmers take the dairy bull calves.
So everything goes local, everything stays local, and everything's finished local, right?
Possibly I wouldn't, we don't have any freezing calves being born after the 15th or 20th of March. So maybe anything before that you could go maybe more with freezing on everything, and after the 15th or 20th of March, it'll be born Angus or Hereford or something.
Okay. We might come back to it again, George, in the wrap-up session. I think, folks, it's important now to move into the one of the core topics, and the final core topic that we have on show here today is that whole area around milk quality and milk composition and the performance that's been delivered here on the Starrett family farm. Let's get a sneak preview, a little promo video once again of what happens in terms of milk quality and where we are. We'll come back for questions and answers.
My average somatic cell count for 2020 was 130,000. We do a cell check dry cow plan with my vet every year, and we do a culture and sensitivity test as well, like to identify the antibiotics that these cows need. If any cows get mastitis, first thing we do is take a sample out of that quarter that is mastitis and put it in the freezer. And later on in the year, then when we come to drying off, we'll do a culture and sensitivity test on those samples to identify what antibiotic we need to use at drying off. In 2020, roughly about 85% of the herd got selective dry cow therapy. I think approximately 24 cows got antibiotics drying off. The criteria we use is any cow above 150,000 of cell count throughout the year, and that took mastitis throughout the year. Those are the only ones get antibiotics at drying off.
Majella, looking at you first here on this milk quality piece, like this is important to you. You're the first to kind of face this. We'll say the consumer afterwards faces it. The composition is excellent, like in terms of this farm. Composition in terms of fat and protein and in terms of the TBC and SEC. Just talk to me about kind of what that means for Richard on this farm.
So his performance is outstanding as it is. Our average manufacturing price paid last year was 35 cents. Richard's at 40 cents per litre. So it just shows his attention to detail and his breeding and efficiencies. And it's coming out into profit, I suppose, that way. He's well 5 cents above, you know, and he's continuously striving to be better and better and better. We have an excellent protein bonus as well, and he's obviously built that into his breeding plans and built that into his business so that he's reaching all of those bonuses, hitting them and outperforming them.
Yeah, so alongside the A plus B minus C, the milk solids is getting rewarded, but even more so with your protein. But then of course, like a lot of people fall down on the TBC or SCC. Like I mean, like the performance here again is exceptional. Like I mean, we're looking at, you know, SCC less than 100 the majority time of the year. Like we'll say TBC again less than 10s. Talk to me about the numbers.
8 and 9 maybe, I suppose, in TBC, completely chlorine free, has been completely chlorine free. He has always been either hitting between 8 and 9 of a TBC, and then I suppose his butter fats and proteins, he's continuously striving to get higher on those all the time.
Come back to the chlorine-free piece in terms of Aurivo, and you know, are all clients now, are all farmers supplying Aurivo? Are they all chlorine-free? All detergents being sold all chlorine-free?
Yeah, everybody has to be chlorine-free because we need to be able to sell the products to the highest markets. So in order to do that, we need the TCMs and absolutely no chlorine at all in anything.
Okay. We might come back again on questions on kind of the whole SCC and TBC piece and how it relates to your piece, Majella. But Richard, looking at you first in terms of, like, one of the key things that stood out for us here in Judges was the whole piece around selective dry cow therapy. Like, I mean, the fact is that 85-90% of the herd are not getting a tube at drying off. Like, that's a big change for the industry. It's a big change for a lot of farmers. Talk to me about how you got to that stage.
Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, we started to think more about it, and would have been picking cows then that had a somatic cell count of 80,000 or less. We started off with a small amount, maybe 15 or 20 cows the first year, and every year just we walked up on cow numbers, and we would have raised the limit up to maybe 100,000, 120,000, and at the minute now we're picking cows anything under 150,000 throughout the lactation, and anything that didn't take mastitis during the lactation.
So, like, I mean, I think to put this in perspective is huge. Like, so you've effectively doubled your threshold. As you say, when you started 5 years ago, anything less than 80 didn't get a tube. Now you've lifted that bar up to 150. So any cows less than 150 that hadn't a case of mastitis, they're not getting a tube. So you're down to very small numbers, 20, 30 cows getting a dry cow tube at drying off.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like, we're very happy with the way things have happened. Like,
Did you see that happening, Richard? If I stood in the yard here 10 years ago, did you see the fact coming that 90% of your cows wouldn't be getting a dry cow tube?
I didn't really know, but as many farmers, including myself, have seen over the years, like, if you go out to treat a cow for mastitis, like, you're not getting the same response. This was antibiotic resistance and stuff, so 15 or 20 years ago. Like,
in terms of milk and cow tubes, are you using throughout the year? Would you use many milk and cow tubes?
Any cows take mastitis would get treated.
Right.
There's not a vast amount, but
But the success rate, George, I mean, you'd see poor success rate to tubing during lactation. Like, is it fair to say?
Yeah, so our data would say that for every 100 cows that are treated for mastitis during the course of lactation, you'll cure about 30% of them. The rest of them will carry residual infections through to the end of the lactation. Many of them, but not all of them, are successfully cured at that stage. So there are issues in terms of clearance of bacteria using antibiotics.
Okay.
That's what I was saying, what George is on about there, like too. Like those cows that are dried off with antibiotic dry cow tubes, they're usually the ones that their cell counts will go down, and the next lactation they'll just work up again. So those are cows that eventually be culled.
What Don Crowley would say, Jack, is that cows that are selectively dried off without antibiotics, when they do acquire infection, the following lactation, they're actually probably more responsive to treatment.
Yeah.
Right. They work better. It works better the next year.
But I would definitely be saying to be using the culture and sensitivity testing
that's
to
what I was going
target
to come to. That's important now. Like that's key. Richard, culture and sensitivity. When do you take? You know, the people talk about sensitivity testing, but when do you take a sample for sensitivity testing, and when does it work?
If we had a cow come in, say this morning, even with mastitis, before we'll even put an antibiotic tube in her, we'll take a sample and put the cow's freeze brand on the bottle and put it into the freezer. And then when we get a few of them together, like we'll get a culture and sensitivity test done on them. And later on, after we get maybe possibly 3 milk recordings done, we've kind of picked out roughly what cows are going to be getting antibiotics at drying off. And we'll take a good sample of those cows, the 4 quarters in those cows, and get a culture and sensitivity test done on to see what antibiotic those cows would need at drying off.
Okay, I'll come to you in a minute, James. Just a quick question. I suppose milk recording and sensitivity testing, Majella, I think they're important to say, like in terms of your clients, Aurivo clients, they need to be milk recording to go down this road that we're talking about. It's very important to go down the milk recording route. Yeah,
the dairy industry is changing. I suppose we've new regulations coming in at the end of the year. This is why Aurivo has set up the initiative for the milk recording to help the suppliers. They also have the culture and sensitivity testing. In my eyes, if you even have a cell count problem or there's something going on, or even just to make it more efficient and improve more, you have to be doing culture and sensitivity testing and milk recording to analyse your data to make the next steps forward.
Brilliant, crucial, George. I'll come to you in a minute. Take a question from James first.
Okay, Jack, Shane is a new entrant here and he's just listened about the mastitis. And the question is, I suppose, he has an issue with mastitis on his farm. Would you have any advice for him as a new entrant? And one of the questions, are you culling your cows based on high somatic cell counts?
Yeah, 2 great questions. George, I'll stick with you first in terms of, and then we'll come to Richard in terms of what's happening on this farm. A mastitis problem, how to fix it, and then I suppose selective culling for mastitis, like in terms of what you're seeing with your clients.
So the first thing is keep records, so you know how often the cow is becoming infected, so you have a track record of them. Secondly is record. We're only recording 60% of the cows in the country nationally. That needs to be 100%. It's a massive improvement needed there. Thirdly, they need to be recorded fairly frequently, once every 8 weeks. On Richard's farm here, he's recording 5 times during the year, so we can get a picture of what's going on. And then the culture and sensitivity test that you're talking about to identify the bacteria and what will kill it.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, Richard, and add to that, like as a plan of action, there's a couple of key steps that's happening. Anything to add to that, and that that question that came in terms of, I suppose, mastitis and managing that piece.
Well, there will be cows that will be consistent at taking mastitis, and there have to be on many farms. There's going to have to be more culling done, I would say, to try and get rid of these cows because they're spreading the mastitis,
Yeah.
These persistent infected ones,
No, I hear you, okay, so we've touched off the whole piece around, I suppose, the selective dry cow therapy. We've touched off the milk and cow tubes. We've touched off the milk quality, fat and protein. We've touched off at the start of this slot. I mean, in terms of, I suppose, just give me the performance that's happening on the farm at the moment. Maybe can we someone just go through the numbers in terms of fat and protein and TBC and SCC. Richard, do you know them off the top of your head? Yeah.
Currently, the monthly would be average 25 litres, 4.15 fat, 3.74 protein, SCC 138, TBC 9.
Right. I mean, George, the fat is, I call it relatively low, as in 4.1, 3.7. There's not a the ratio there is give or take 1 to 1. It's not a massive fat level.
People obsess about ratios of fat to protein. Nothing to worry about. Once it's above its threshold around 3.2% fat, I'd never worry about it this time of the year.
Yeah.
It's to do with the quality of the grass. Quality of grass is high, then the fats are going to be low.
Brilliant. And Richard, talk to us about the diet. Talk to us about what they're on at the moment in terms of how much meal and how much grass.
Cows are getting 3 kilos of meal at the minute, and much grass as they can eat. Around 17 kilos.
And they'll stay on that 3 kilos a meal, or what's its
Yeah,
grass
well,
supply? What decides that?
Usually stay on 3 kilos unless we get into, usually in August time what happens, we usually get a good wee bit of rain maybe every day, and the grass dry matter will go down to maybe 13 or 14%, so the cows can't get a proper full out of it, so we'll start and feed bales, and maybe might put the meal up to 5 kilos. That's where 1.2 tonne comes from feeding a year. Like.
Yeah.
But it's very important at that time of the year to keep your cows fully fed, because it's a long time to their end of their lactation. Like.
Yeah.
That's where you get your
Brilliant.
extra solids out of.
Okay, I just want to alert our viewers that we're kind of into the last 10 minutes of this slot and this show, and if you have questions, get your question in now to James and we'll get it to Richard. It's a great opportunity to get access to Richard and the team of specialists that's here with us today. We've had a good touch off the environment, breeding, genetics, calf rearing, and I suppose that whole issue around milk quality and composition that's crucially important to any dairy farm. Richard, if we kind of maybe step back from it, I suppose, and kind of talk about the business, the dairy business that you have here as we kind of get into our wrap session. I mean, talk to me about, I suppose, the future and any issues that you see coming down the line that you reckon will impact on your business, or that you see maybe a kind of to raise a red flag about any issues, or is there any challenges you see coming?
I would say one of the biggest challenges we see is even the derogation. I think it's very important at that stage, because farmers that are on a derogation have to tick far more boxes than anybody not on a derogation, on what we do, nutrient management plans and stuff, and spread and slurry less.
Yeah, so you're saying that while the derogation are labelled derogation, and because they're higher stocking rate, you're saying that actually the scrutiny on those farms is even more so, and they're doing maybe a potentially better job for the environment and for the business than any other farmers that are not in that.
That's right. Yeah, it's all good what they're doing. One particular one's the less, low emission slurry spreading, it's protected urea and stuff.
Yeah, I mean they're all crucial building blocks and making the business tick for you. I'm just in terms of your stocking rate, just again to wrap it up for me, you've give or take 55 hectares, you're milking 160 cows, so give or take you're in around the 3 cows to the hectare. That's what this business is running at. So that's why you're in a derogation. But on top of that, you're doing all the other stuff that makes it a sustainable business.
Yeah, that's right.
I suppose from our point of view as well, Jack, just the overview of the farm, how efficient, attention to detail, but everything is data driven. Yeah. Richard does everything data driven, so whether it's stock, milk quality, every single area of his dairy business is data driven decisions. We've
got a good feel for that. Questions rolling in. James, looking at you.
Okay, Jack, 3 very related questions. First one, what heat detection aids is Richard using? Maybe a few tips on how to achieve the 6-week target interval, and do you use sire advice from ICBF? So all breeding related.
Okay, 3 quick ones. We'll cover them off quick because we've touched off them. I'll say moo monitor and heat tail painting. Yeah. Right. Anything else? No. In terms of heat detection aids? No. The other one, I suppose, was the 6-week piece. Now, just nail that in terms of how you maximise your 6-week calving rate or submission rate, whatever works. Yeah.
Well, what's the moo monitor? 3 weeks before we start breeding, I set the drafter, the auto draft for heat. So any cow that comes in heat will be drafted out, so I'm able to mark her off as being in heat. So a week before, or 10 days before we started the EI, the vet came out and examined 26 cows, put the seeders in 7, and they were able to start to be bred then along with the main herd.
Okay, so you're selectively looking within your herd to try and get those problem breeders and weed them out early in the timeline. Yeah. Good. Okay, we'll leave at that. The last one was the ICBF advice, the sire advice, and you're using that. I think.
Very, very good tool.
Brilliant. Okay, what else is important here in terms of, I suppose, I mean, there's a lot of talk around multi-species, Richard. Would you ever consider putting plantain into those lovely grassland swards, or you're putting in clover at the moment? You're going for a mixed species. Yeah. You're going for your clover and permanent perennial ryegrass. That's the vision. That's the plan you're on at the moment.
That's right. On the mixed species, I think I'll just wait to see what more trials can be done first before we go down that route. Okay. It's all the early on Curtin's farm, whatever.
Okay. There's talk of maybe trying to flatten the milk curve in terms of producing more milk from this farm. Would you have any notion of kind of trying to produce more milk during the winter? You're a spring calver as we speak. Yeah. Any change in that respect?
No.
No vision for that. George, there's a lot of talk of it down around the east side of the country in terms of trying to manage profiles, etc., and that kind of thing. There's more of a swing to off-season milk. I mean,
there is, more later calving for less money.
Yeah. That's not a good place to go.
No, it's not.
Slurry storage is another part of maybe this environmental piece. Would you, how in terms of slurry storage, how are you fixed, I suppose, in terms of maybe having to put up more slurry storage, or are you adequately?
Well, we have enough storage for what we have, unless something comes at us in the future, we'll have to hold it for longer.
Okay. Good. We've had a good touch out of it. I know you're keen to get in on your hampers, Majella. You did a little competition running to try and get people to watch this.
Yeah.
You know, and you got a bit of support for it, and you'll be delivering out those hampers next week.
Definitely will, yeah. And there's a range of products and a full hamper there. There's 5 of them. So to thank everybody for actually logging in and registering and come and see us today and having a look. There'll be 5 of them to give away, so I'll be running something next week and we will give out the prize winners and we'll deliver them to the person. And
Brilliant. James, you have a question or two to finish it up?
Yeah, just a quick one. Any tips for farmers on keeping somatic cell counts low? A couple of people looking for that. How to keep those?
So we've touched off a lot of them, but again, Richard, in terms of keeping somatic cell count low, talk to me about what you're doing on kind of a daily basis and when the cows are inside, etc. and that kind of thing.
Well, we when the cows are milking, we clean the cubicles and scrape the yards twice a day, and bed the cubicles with sawdust and lime. All dry cows are scraped and bedded once a day. What we've done this year in the milking parlour, we've put on cluster removers and cluster flush. It stops anything being contaminated from one cow from contaminating another. And
you talked to me before about in-calf heifers, and you tried a new little trick in terms of trying to keep, like a lot of farmers have that issue with mastitis or with cell count issue in first calving heifers. What did you do?
We tried it there this year. All on calf heifers coming up to calving will be teat sprayed 3 or 4 times a week to keep the bacteria down, and we hadn't any heifers calved in this year with mastitis at all. I think it's a very important situation.
George, Majella, that's exceptional, in terms of like what you're hearing with farmers on the ground, to have 0 in terms of your in-calf heifers. That's a huge result.
It's a huge result. Typically, what's happening now, heifers are being better grown, they're better bagged up, and they're more vulnerable to acquiring infection before they calve.
And I suppose milk recording is the big one for keeping the cell count down, because we don't have the data, we can't analyse the data.
Correct.
So to get the cell count down, we need to analyse each bit of it and then take down and make decisions based on that.
Folks, I think it's fair to say an exceptional farm driven by exceptional people that's benefiting the Donegal community and the dairy industry worldwide. I think it's great to get the insight, to get behind the scenes, and thank Richard, Majella and George, I suppose, for contributing today and for making it's a virtual farm walk, but it's as good as we can do at the moment. But I think it has been exceptional, and I think we've got a real feel for behind the farm in terms of what's happening and the excellent performance. 600 kilos of milk solids per cow, stocked at 3 cows to the hectare. It's super stuff, like we'll say, on a grass-based system, built into the environment and the aspect and the site that we have here on this farm. So folks, thanks a million for your effort, and thanks for the work that's gone into kind of, I suppose, being able to put together the videos and that. Folks, there's very little more for me to say. I think the Richard and the team that are behind this farm speak for themselves in terms of the performance that comes out. There's a couple of people, there's a couple of organisations, Teagasc, the National Dairy Council, Ornua and Aurivo were crucial to making this event happen today, and without them it wouldn't have happened. So behind the scenes we had Declan McCardle and his team for delivering this show today. We're very thankful to him, and we're very thankful for you for watching and listening to this show. Please show your appreciation for Richard and his team here at Lifford by sending him a get well wish or a thank you wish for making this farm and making what he is and what has happened here for the dairy industry today. Thanks for watching. Stay safe.